morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm the Reverend Jim Fodia, and I am honored to be your assistant sabbatical minister. Here at First Church, we welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome people participating in person and those watching online. We are streaming this service live. For those of you in the room, the blue tape on the floor near the back indicates seats that are in view of the camera. All the ones forward from that are in view of the camera. We'd like to pay a special welcome to guests joining us this morning. If you are visiting today, we invite you to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you. If you could fill it out and drop it on the offering plate, that later in the service we would love to catch your information. Please join us for a social hour after the service across the hall in the Leanhouse Common Room, which is over there. Folks can find hearing assist devices and large print hymnals and orders of service at the back of the sanctuary. And there are worship activity bags for children or those young at heart. If you're watching online, YouTube has closed captioning available. You can enable that function on the device you're using. Please let us know if you have any trouble accessing the closed captions. Our announcements this morning are about Sunday, May 21st, a big day that's just 2 weeks from today. On Sunday the 21st, we'll be trying something new for Religious Education Sunday by having one worship service only at 11 a.m. This change centers the care and inclusion of our young children who would not be able to stay at church for 4 hours to do 2 worship services. While there will be no service at 9 that day, the sanctuary will be open for quiet reflection at 9, and we will have our usual forum and coffee hour at 10 a.m. So we hope you will join us that day at 11 a.m. for our multi-generational celebration of religious education. And then on that very same Sunday, the 21st, First Church's annual meeting will be held beginning at 12:45 p.m., both in our sanctuary and on Zoom. Come learn about First Church accomplishments over the 2022-23 church year, get information about our financial situation, vote on new Board of Trustees and nominating committee members, and hear about the progress of the task force that's setting up the new Forge Our Future Endowment Fund. Childcare will be available in the preschool and nursery during the meeting. No sign-up is required for that. Watch your email for additional details and a Zoom sign-up for the meeting. I now welcome you to our worship service by inviting you to join me in a unison affirmation of our mission, which is written on your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. And now it is my honor to introduce to you the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. Reverend Manish serves as the senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is a co-editor of Conversations with the Sacred, a collection of prayers that was published in 2020. He is also a co-editor with our First Church senior minister, the Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, of Justice on Earth, People of Faith Working at the Intersections of Race, Class, and the Environment, a book that was the UUA Common Read in 2018-2019. Reverend Manish has served extensively in Unitarian Universalist leadership, including as the member of the UUSC Board of Trustees, as a member of the UUA Board of Trustees, as president of DRUM, which is our UU People of Color organization, diverse and revolutionary Unitarian Universalist multicultural ministries. He's been a commissioner on the UUA Commission on Appraisal, the secretary of the board of the Starr King School for Ministry, and he's also been the author and advocate of a 2007 General Assembly resolution confronting gender identity-related discrimination in our denomination. He brings to the ministry his multicultural experience serving as a U.S. diplomat during the Clinton administration. Manish loves desert hiking and his amazing kids and husband. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti.
Thank you, Jim, for a very warm introduction there. What a joy it is to be with you all at First Unitarian Society this morning. Good morning. I bring you greetings from your siblings in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Here we are on this beautiful Sunday in a world that Jason Mraz reminds us is a remarkable place. Here we have gathered not far from the waters of Lake Michigan at the confluence of possibility and hope, preparing ourselves for this time of reflection and renewal. In lives that can be so full and busy, running from one task or responsibility to the next, we give ourselves the gift of this precious moment to be in community, to nurture our spiritual being, to open ourselves up to the movement of whatever we may consider sacred or holy within and around us. In the name of all of that and so much more, we gather this morning recognizing that community is fundamentally built on relationship and holding the longing in our hearts for new relationships that will be both nurturing and meaningful. Holding fast to that hope, that possibility, feel the flow of love all around you. Feel the essence of community coursing around you. Allow yourself to step into this current of love, reminding you of who we each are at our core. Heart-centered, soul-centered human beings, longing for connection with one another and the holy and the sacred that exists both within each of us and around us. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of the heart's yearning, let us gather this morning, all who are seekers of that which is greater. Come, let us worship. And if you would, I'd invite you to rise and body your spirit as you're comfortably able and called. We're going to join together in singing hymn 361 in your gray hymnals, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Kimberly, your Minister of Religious Education, and the story I have for you today is called The Three Questions, and it's by John J. Muth. Once there was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answer to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first questions. Then Sonia, the heron, spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must make a plan in advance, she said. Goggle, the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, you'll know when to do things if you watch and you pay close attention. Then Pushkin, the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and to help you decide when to do things. For example, Google, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia the heron. Oh, those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more, and then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, said Google. Fighting, said Pushkin right away. And the boy thought then for a long time. He loved his friends, and he knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions, but their answers just did not seem quite right. And then an idea came to him. I know, he thought. I'm going to ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a long time, and surely he will know what answers I am looking for. So Nikolai hiked up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone, and when he arrived, he found Leo there digging a garden, and the turtle was old, and the digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions, and I need your help, said Nikolai. What is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but only smiled, and then he went on digging. You must be tired, said Nikolai. Let me help you. And the turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept digging until all the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and the rain burst from darker clouds, and they moved toward the cottage for shelter. Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg out of a stick of bamboo. And the storm raged on and banged the doors and windows, and the panda suddenly woke up. Where am I? She said. Where's my child? Oh, the boy ran out of the cottage and down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and the drenching rain, he ran farther into the forest. When he found the path of the panda's child, there she was, cold and shivering on the ground. The panda was wet and scared, but alive, so Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry, and he laid her in her mother's arms. And Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm and the birds sang and all was well in the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her baby and her from the storm. And at that moment, Sonia and Google and Pushkin arrived just to make sure everyone was okay. And Nikolai felt a great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends. He had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt disappointed. He had still not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time. And the old turtle looked at him. But your questions have been answered, he said. They have, said the boy. Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you would not heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. And the most important one at that time was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. And later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. And the most important ones were the panda and the baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing to do is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. This is why we are here. The end. Please rise in body and spirit for our next hymn. It is number 311, Let It Be a Dance. Religious education children and volunteers, please follow me to Lean House Common Room after the first verse.
For our time of reflection and silence today, I want to invite us, those of us who have been in Unitarian Universalism for some time, to think about, reflect on what Unitarian Universalism has meant to you in your life. What impact has it had on you? And if you're newer to us, and every Sunday there always are some who are newer to us, I'd invite you to reflect on the longings you have brought with you in your journey into community, in finding First Unitarian Society, or being here with us this morning. Let us take a few moments of silence together.
Good morning. My name is Busy Schultz, and I'm honored to serve as your worship associate this morning. On May 1st, 2022, my father, Dwayne Schultz, officially joined the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. Give him a round of applause. After being listed as a friend of the church for as long as I can remember, attending countless services, forums, coffee hours, and actively pledging financial support to this congregation, he finally made the decision to become a member. When he first shared that he was enrolling in the Journey to Membership class, I was over the moon excited and also slightly surprised. After all, our family has been coming to this church since before I was born. I hadn't expected him to ever join, and even teased him a bit. Dad, how many decades did it take for you to finally become a fully fledging member of our church? For me, becoming a member of First Church felt like a natural part of entering my adulthood. When I moved back to Milwaukee after college, the connection I felt with this community meant becoming a member of the congregation. This is how I claimed my sense of belonging. My father's journey was different from mine. What both of our journeys share is the sense of connection to this church and to this community. One of the things I value so much about this church and our larger UU faith is that my spiritual journey does not need to mirror the journey of the person sitting next to me, or even that of my father. And yet, we can all claim a sense of belonging in a shared community. We each get to define what our relationship to that community is. When I asked my dad about becoming a member after more than 40 years with the church, one of his responses was, "The time was right for me. It is about community. It's about the people." What he said made me think of our mission statement, which we affirm together every Sunday. It begins with the words, "We gather." This simple and powerful statement underscores the meaning and value we place on community. Community is our starting point. Being a community of searchers means that we each get to practice a responsible search for truth and meaning together. We hold space for one another to become our best possible selves. As my dad stood tall in front of this congregation last year and this community welcomed him as a new member, my heart filled with gratitude. I am grateful to be a part of a church community where all are welcome, where each of our journeys is self-defined, and there is space and acceptance of whatever that journey may be.
Walking through town with a nor'easter blowing, got my head out of tune. Don't know where I'm going, just another day. Trying to get back to you, like a raspberry seed in my wisdom tooth. I sometimes wished I'd never met you, but it's all the same when you're trying to get back to blue. All the townspeople, directions when to give them your love when you're sad, babe. Ain't that happiness? flows out and you can't ride no more. You just swing straight down, touch the ocean floor, and when you find it, you make it back to shore. All the church people, all the townspeople, ring true for sure. Give 'em your love when you're sad, babe. Ain't that kindness? Give 'em your love when you're mad, babe. Ain't that kindness? Ain't that kindness? Ain't that kindness? Ain't that
Thank you, Busy, for sharing such a meaningful experience of your family. Thank you all for reminding us of what kindness is, the importance of that in our lives and in our journeys. I'm approaching 20 years of ordination, and it used to be the rare Sunday on which I would be thinking about some societal tragedy that has just unfolded. And in recent years, it's become almost the norm. It feels almost common that on Saturday night, there was yet another mass shooting, this time in Texas. In a week in which a black man was killed with a chokehold in New York City. In a time in which, just in recent weeks, not further out than that, politicians promoting themselves and narrow interests are passing heartbeat protection acts in Florida, laws that codify "don't say gay," making it illegal to teach at any grade level at all about sexual orientation or gender identity. Books being banned throughout our country. Why? Because they discuss race or gender identity or sexual orientation. The top 3 topics, reasons why books are being banned across the United States, in the highest numbers ever. And. The list is long. We haven't even mentioned climate devastation, what the next 20, 30 years might look like. In all of this context, being reminded about kindness, about what it means to show up as our best selves. In this almost wild frontier-like version of American culture, in which self-interest rules the day, individualism has become an idolatry in and of itself, survival of the fittest, each person for themselves, hold on to yours and what you got, juxtaposed to that, we are reminded that kindness matters. Kindness, a relational quality. It's something that's born out in relationship, not in isolation. So you all don't know me. This is the first time we're meeting. I hope it won't be the last time, but it's the first time you all are meeting me. So I wanted to share a little bit with you about, you could say, my origin story, how I came to Unitarian Universalism. It's connected to some of these themes. in my late teens, early 20s, I began to understand that I'm gay. And somebody who was raised in a Hindu culture, Hindu context, very conservative one, I might add, that was not acceptable. It was expected, not optional, expected that I would have a heterosexual marriage. And not just that, if you've seen the Netflix show Indian Matchmaker, you know that my culture loves arranged marriages. And if not outright arranged, then introduced marriages. That's the kinder, softer, gentler version of it today. But nonetheless, your parents get a veto. They get to decide who you are partnered with and spend the rest of your life with. That was my future. And I needed to come out of the closet, which meant to some degree, at the time, that I was turning my back on my Indian culture, on my Hindu heritage, possibly even my family. Because to not live into those cultural expectations was a betrayal. It was me betraying my culture, betraying my family, not living into my obligations, not appreciating all that they had given me, all that they had sacrificed for me. In exchange for that were just a few simple things that I was expected to do. So at the age of 20, I did come out. And as I did that, I made the internal bargain that, yeah, I guess this is it. I guess I won't have much of an ongoing relationship with Hindu temple communities, maybe even with my family. But in order to be who I am, in order to be true to that, also, by the way, to not mess up other people's lives, if I lived into the fantasy of what I was supposed to be, who I was supposed to be, I'm not the only person impacted by that. There are other people's lives that would have been impacted by that. So I did what was needed that felt healthy. And it felt like I was going on this solo version of spirituality at that point in time. Now, some of us, this will be familiar to a lot of you. I'm spiritual but not religious, which is shorthand for saying I don't belong to anything organized, I'm not attending anything, but I'm committed internally to myself that I'm going to live the best life that I can live with myself as the reference point. So I was going to be spiritual but not religious. That was my commitment to myself in my early 20s. I figured I can follow my own conscience, live into my own values, a personal, private path. By the way, notice the echo of that choice with the fundamental problem in our culture and our society today. Individualism taken as idolatry, to the point where there is no kindness or caring about others, certainly not others who are different than us. That's the path. Those are some of the seeds that gain fruition over time. I chose a path of individualism, of going it on my own for a while. And it worked. It worked for some time. It was in my late 20s. You know, I almost got through a decade of that, of living like that, choosing to live like that. It was in my late 20s. I got invited to a college friend's Hindu wedding. She was heterosexual. Her parents approved of her marriage. And so all the expectations were being fulfilled. A hotel was rented out in suburban DC. They came, if you've ever seen anything about a traditional Hindu wedding, the groom comes in on a horse. They did all of that here in this country. And relatives flew in from everywhere, all over the planet, friends and relatives from India and elsewhere. A packed hotel ballroom. And as I sat there with joy in my heart for my friend, it was a beautiful wedding. A sadness was also finding expression. I might never have this, what I was experiencing in that moment. Hundreds of people showing up to celebrate something important in my life. Who would? I don't even know if my own parents would, let alone what community. did I belong to that would celebrate with me? Which led to other questions. What about over time? As I age, as I continue experiencing life, who's gonna show up if I need help or support? Sure, I had friends. Friends are not the same thing as community. They can be a part of community. Community is something greater. I was noticing the difference. I was noticing that I'd thrown out, metaphorically, the baby with the bathwater. I was trying to solve a specific issue or problem in my life, but I got rid of something that mattered deeply to me and something that I had grown up with, which was an intrinsic connection to community, a heartfelt connection to community. I remember the car ride back. My gosh, we're going on 30 years ago. I remember the car ride back from this wedding. I wept, and I wept, and I wept. I was so distraught at realizing that I'd given up something that was so important and necessary to me, and I didn't know what to do about it. It was a Friday night. The next day was a Saturday, and still holding this grief, I called one of my longtime friends. As you heard from my bio, I was a former diplomat, and I'd lived in Europe, Finland specifically. I called up my best friend in Finland, navigating the time difference and all of that. And over this long-distance call, I'm describing what had happened the night before, and I'm feeling this tremendous sense of loss and this longing, this heartache for connection and community. Now, mind you, this best friend I'm talking to is somebody who grew up Jehovah's Witness and he left his religion. That's how we became best friends. He lost his family over leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. I lost kind of mine in coming out of the closet. So I'm calling thousands of miles away, pouring my heart out. There are a dozen, maybe, Unitarians in Finland? Maybe. That's being generous. So on this phone call, my friend says to me, "Have you heard of the Unitarian Universalists?" And I said, "No." And I said, "What, is there a community where you're at? How have you heard about them?" And he said, "No. I mean, there's a couple people, but there's no community here, really. I've read about them. But it sounds like that's what you are." And I was like, okay, hold on. So this is the age of dial-up, by the way. So I'm on an international phone call, paying exorbitant rates. I go to the dial-up on AOL. And I'm then looking up Unitarian Universalist. I get the denomination's website, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, no, come on. Only cults sound this good. I'm gonna show up and they're gonna ask me to sign over my house. And he's like, "I don't know, I've never been to a Unitarian Universalist. You're just gonna have to go. And you're gonna have to see for yourself." So I look up the closest one to where I lived. Happens to be one of our most historic churches in the denomination, All Souls in Washington, D.C. Handful of blocks from where I lived at the time. And I turned to my then partner, my now ex-husband, but I turned to him. He was a professor of the sciences. And I said, "I feel really called to do this, to go tomorrow. It's a Saturday, to go tomorrow, the very next day." And he says, "Well, I've got some bottom lines." And I think he grew up Methodist, something like this, but had not gone to church decades. He said, "Yeah, I'm a professor of the sciences. If there's any that was his language, mumbo jumbo. If there's mumbo jumbo, I'm walking out the door." And I said, "Okay, that's fair. My bottom line is if there's anything anti-gay, I'm out the door because that's been my journey. I'm not going to deal with that." So we agreed. There were two bottom lines, and we went the next day on a Sunday as a couple to All Souls in Washington, D.C. I have never been so scared. I was utterly terrified. Now, what you need to know about that is if you grew up Hindu, this is not what religious community looks like. There are no wooden pews all facing the same direction. There are no hymnals. There's no thing called a sermon. Now I know, and all you long-timers know too, we are Christian in origin and humanistic, pluralistic, many things, diverse things today, but these structures are very Christian. It was super intimidating. We sat down. It was kind of like in this area, this side of the congregation. We sat down, and no sooner did we just kind of try to slide in comfortably into some seats and not make a big fuss of ourselves, I start kind of just noticing who I'm around. It was all the elders of the congregation. Everybody had gray hair and was over 70. Now, as a young person who had just struggled with coming out, 30, not today, when elementary age kids are coming out, I'm talking 30 years ago, all the stereotypes were running through my brain silently. These folks don't want me here. If they really knew that I was here as a couple, they would want me to leave their community. And the nervousness for that just kept ramping up and ramping up and ramping up inside me. And then guess what? And by the way, All Souls still does this, I believe. They would bring a mic around during the welcome time. If you're first time in our community, would you stand up and introduce yourselves and tell us why you're here? I was like, oh my God. They're bringing a mic to us. Okay. So with a mic in hand, I introduced us. I intentionally introduced us as a couple visiting for the very first time. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a troublemaker that way. I take those risks, but then I get really nervous and scared about it. So then I sat back down and I was freaking out again, even more so now. I'm like, oh, the elders definitely didn't like that. This is their space and their community. I have just invaded it. So I got through the rest of the service. Of course, as we were singing hymns, reading ahead, do I agree with the words? Is he, my partner who's the scientist, is he going to agree with the words? The words were okay. Christian structure still, but the words were okay. The main speaker got up. It was a minister that day, an assistant minister. Great. Couldn't really follow everything. You know, we have jargon, all that stuff. But the main message was basically okay. We get to the end of the service. As soon as it concludes, and they describe, there's a coffee hour, there's a newcomer greeting in a special room, you could go to the coffee hour, you could go to the greeting. Oh no, I was not gonna do any of those things. Absolutely not. The door was in the back, I had my eye on that door. As soon as the final music concluded, I grabbed my partner's hand and we stepped into the aisle and started to move towards the back door to leave as quickly as humanly possible until an elder about 3 rows behind with a walker saw what I was doing, and she took her walker, shoved it right into the middle of the aisle, pulled herself up on the walker, and staring straight into my eyes, leaned out, gave me a hug and embraced me, and said, I'm so glad you're here today with us. I'm so glad you're here today with us. Such a simple act of kindness, of hospitality, of graciousness, of love. I don't even remember who this individual was. I will never forget her, or what she did and what she said. I will never forget her. And it completely altered my life trajectory. Completely. I was working as a diplomat. Within a month or two, they had me preaching about Hinduism. Within a year, I was on the board of trustees. Does this sound familiar to some of you all? By year 3, I was in seminary. And here I am today, going on almost 20 years of ordination. All started with a walker in an aisle and an elder who would not let me pass, saying, "I'm so glad you're here with us." There's some reminders in this. Now, every Sunday, there's always new people with us. There are always new people with us on any given Sunday. And if that is you, here in person or streaming or watching on demand later, I want you to know that this Unitarian Universalism, this experience could very well be that for you as well. It is this powerful, it is this impactful in our lives. You'll only know if you stick around and you try it out. So give us the chance to tell you that we're glad that you're here, because we are. We really are. And I want to remind us long-timers of a few things. There's some of our UU communities on this, whatever side of the pandemic we're at, approaching some 3-year-plus stage of it. Some of our communities have been wrestling, in a lot of ways. Many things are reconfigured and different. Some have lost children, some have lost adult members, some are facing budgetary uncertainty of various kinds. And what is the thing that comes up when a congregation is facing uncertainty around money or facing membership losses? Where are the new people? How do we get new people in the door? Comma, or unspoken, as a solution for our budget. That's not what it's about. That's not what our ministry to new people is about. It's not about meeting our financial needs. It's never been about that. We know that, but we forget it. We slip into these subconscious assumptions that, if there's a shortfall, now we need new people. Now we need new people. It's a reminder not to slip into that subconscious thinking. I want to also remind us, those of us who are long-timers, we heard in Busy's story this beautiful sense of claiming belonging, and yes, that is critical. Those of us who are long-timers, it is because at some point in time we have learned internally to claim Unitarian Universalism as our own. No one will ever take it away from us after we claim it ourselves. But claiming it is not something external. It's not something anybody else can hand to us. But once we have claimed it as our own, it is ours. And no one can take it from us. But there's a thing that precedes the claiming. And the thing that precedes the claiming is the conveying of a sense of belonging. That is something that is offered by others. That is a gift. And it is received often by folks who are brand new with such earnestness. Because we're looking at if you remember, if some of you have had that own experience yourself, you're looking for any little micro sign of, might I belong or might I not belong? Or what is this community really about? We literally, for any little micro sign. And so when, out of a place of love and generosity, hospitality and kindness, we extend not just a micro sign, but a big one, a significant one, such as, I'm so glad you're here with us. Let me embrace you. Not a small sign, maybe a medium one or even a large one. It matters. It truly matters. In these reminders, we Unitarian Universalists who, oh my goodness, do we love bickering amongst ourselves. That's a whole nother sermon I could give on another day. Remember who we are collectively. It's not the little things we bicker over with one another. We are mostly a people that not uniformly, but mostly agree with one another from a place of shared values, deeply held shared values. Where else do you find people who, on 80-85% of stuff, we're usually in broad agreement with one another? Remember who we are. Yes, there is difference, but we are a people who have a direction, have shared values, have a deep sense of understanding of what we're committed to. Remember why we are who we are. It's not for the perpetuation of communities alone. It's for the business, the calling of touching hearts and minds, of helping people learn and grow and be our best self, your best self. That's done together in community. That's not the path of the loner. Our potential to change lives and save lives is central to why we exist. All the more reason why we must remember and hold closely and dearly that who we are as a faith, who we are together as Unitarian Universalists, is precious, it is life-saving, and it matters. May we hold that closely and dearly in our hearts.
Every week, we have an opportunity to practice our values through the sharing of our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledged cash in our offering plate with a community organization. In this way, we commit our resources in line with the belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. This month, the religious education community selected the Trevor Project as our Share the Plate recipient. The Trevor Project is dedicated to building a safer, more inclusive world where all LGBTQ young people see a bright future for themselves. May the practice of giving bring us joy. The offering will now be gratefully received.
People get ready, get ready. Here it comes, it's a light, a beautiful light. Over the horizon, into your eyes. Oh my, how beautiful. Oh my beautiful mother, she told me, girl, in life you're gonna go far. If you do it right, you love where you are. Just know
$240,000 miles from me. You come a long way to belong here, to share this view of the night, a glorious night. Over the horizon is another bright sky. Oh my, how beautiful. Oh my irrefutable father. He told me, son, sometimes it may seem dark, but the absence of light is a necessary part.
Wherever you go, no, you're never alone.
prepare to depart, would you rise and bow to your spirit as you're comfortably able? Take a moment, look around this sanctuary, look at the beloveds, the siblings who are around you this morning. Offer a little wave, offer a smile. You who are streaming, you're also with us and we're holding you in our hearts as well. You are part of this beloved community. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones who bring alive kindness, graciousness, a sense of belonging for one another, unconditional belonging and acceptance of whoever we are, wherever we may be on our own individual journeys. Go forth now, knowing that you're held deeply and well in this community's love until you are together again, supported and encouraged, and being all of that, and being the very best version of yourself that you can be. May it be so. Amen. Let us join together as we get ready to depart. Our final hymn is 1064, Blue Boat Home.